Hey everyone, and welcome back to another slightly serious video today, and we are going to be looking at another YouTuber, this time called Minilad, whose actual name is Craig Thompson, who has been doing unacceptable and asking inappropriate things of minors thanks to his large platform here on YouTube. This is such a terrifyingly prevalent thing. There have been so many YouTubers making videos recently about these kinds of predators. I have made videos about YouTubers' predator problem. If you haven't seen it, go watch it here. I think it's quite a good one. But today, I think this one raises a really interesting question because this is a guy who has been soliciting inappropriate and sexual images of underage girls, and he went away from YouTube for a while. He's come back with this apology video, and from what I can tell, he seems to think, he says, as long as he's going to therapy, he can just jump back into his job and make his YouTube channel again. And I kind of want to cover this today because, one, I had no idea who this guy was before this story broke. Two, I want to talk a little bit about what has been happening based on some news articles and stuff that we're going to be reading today. And thirdly, the most important thing, what I want this video to be about, is talking about sanctions and what is enough. What is a sanction meant to do? What is an appropriate sanction for certain things? Because there's a lot of talk of sorry, I just hit the mic. There's a lot of talk of cancel culture and, ooh, cancel culture bad, ooh, cancel culture good. But I don't think this is about cancel culture. This is about someone who has done something blatantly wrong, illegal, hurt children, and how should they be punished for that? I was actually discussing this, not specifically about this Craig guy, but just in general. I was talking about this with Fletch the other day, and at one point the conversation came to, like, he was telling me about, because his main areas of, like, research and stuff at the uni he works at are around, like, sports and ethnicity and stuff like that, and he was telling me about one case of a guy who just said these absolutely repulsive, disgusting racial slurs to a footballer during a game, and it was captured on camera and he lost his job because of it. And while obviously my initial reaction was, yes, brilliant, good, for argument's sake, I brought up the question of, I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but something like, do you really think that was the right thing to do? Because just losing his job, did that really teach him anything? So should a sanction just be about punishment, or should it be about re-education as well? And I kind of said that for argument's sake to kind of, like, raise a discussion, because the truth is, like, I agree with what Fletch said about how the company he worked for didn't want to be associated with any kind of disgusting racist behaviour, and so it was within their rights to fire him. They did the right thing by firing him. Also, the fact that he said such disgusting things did deserve some kind of punishment. I agree with all that stuff. So I think that one is a kind of slightly straightforward case of, yes, he should have been punished for doing something horrific. But on the other hand, the kind of more discussion-y point I wanted to try and raise was, like, is just punishment enough? Is making someone suffer because they made someone else suffer enough? Does the punishment or the sanction have to fit the crime? Should the punishment or sanction be about rehabilitation and re-education? Should it be about protecting the people that the perpetrator hurt? What should it be about? And that's kind of what I want to get into with today's video and discuss these things. And as always, there's no right or wrong answers. I'm going to have my opinions, but I want to hear yours as well. So let me know down in the comments what you think should happen to Craig here. If you think he should be allowed to carry on with his YouTube channel and his job and his career, or whether that should be taken away from him for the reasons we are going to be discussing in this video. So with that in mind, I figured we would get some background to this story by reading a few news articles that have been written about this stuff as it was happening, because they seem as good a source as any, you know? And we're going to be reading some of the bits of the statements kind of put out by the children that he hurt. As always, all the links and sources and things like that will be linked in the description below. I'm saying link a lot, link. Yeah, go check it out. So 25th of June this year, Minilad apologises for sending unacceptable messages to young fans. YouTuber Craig Minilad Thompson has broken his silence and issued an apology after two women revealed unacceptable messages he had sent to them as young fans. On June 23rd, two women came forward with their own stories, independent of each other, detailing a series of events in which Minilad coerced them into awkward messages and sent unsolicited nudes when they were aged 16 and 17. So teenagers, barely above the age of consent in the UK, still don't think it's okay for him as an adult to be saying this kind of stuff to them. They're essentially still children. One statement posted in a tweet longer by a woman named, I think that's Haley, I haven't pronounced that right, reveals how Thompson would use his position of power over young fans to solicit nude pictures from them. The statement also says he made them engage in sexual conversations that they were not comfortable with Haley herself adding that she was a minor at the time. So this is something I actually spoke about in my last video on this kind of idea of using a power imbalance with your fans or in whatever other position to, you know, essentially manipulate people and get what you want, and how that's not okay. So I think we've already established that's bad, but if you want to hear more about it, please go check out that other video. So that's not what we're going to be concentrating on today. What we're going to be concentrating on is the fact that he has done these bad things. He has admitted he's done these bad things. Where do we go from here? I'm going to read you a few little excerpts from some of these statements from his ex-fans. And I'm going to warn you, they're a little bit triggering. They're not very nice. So if you struggle with this sort of thing, please skip over this bit. I'll leave a timestamp on screen that you can skip to. But just for a few highlights, I think this one is from Haley, who says, I was manipulated by Mini Lad. I was 16. He was 20 plus. First off, I want to say I'm not doing this because I hate him. I'm disappointed in him. There is a difference. I'm not doing this for malicious intent as well. He has rejected help and told the internet he would get therapy and then never did. And even after so many years, to hear his actions of arrogance have not decreased makes me feel like a fool for not sharing this sooner in protection of any other women who associate themselves with him. A couple of things to kind of put a pin in here. One is this woman should not feel guilty. She's not the one at fault here. Please don't feel any shame. And the other thing is the idea that he was clearly called out for this kind of behaviour in the past in one way or another, and he said he was going to change and never did, is something we really need to think about when we talk about where to go from here. So we'll come back to that. When I was around 16 at the time, Craig and his ex had broken up and he was severely depressed. I honestly do not remember when or why Craig and I started talking more. I think it was more so I was worried for him and tried to be a good friend because of the breakup at the time, so I was there for him. Direct messaging him through Twitter during my classes, listening to his worries about his ex, or even just to talk. Then things started to get more personal and darker with the conversations. He would go to me for venting to see if there was a way to get back to his ex or help her change and whatnot. Of course, me trying to be a good friend, I listened to everything he said and even said, sure, there's hope in changing her, and poop like that. I'll admit I was a bit of a butt kisser. Reason being was I had a crush on him. He knew that. So again, this goes back to what we were saying in that last video about, you know you have power over your fans because they're your fan. You already have that over them, and when you know they have a crush on you, don't take advantage of that. He knew all this, he was clearly aware of this, and he still acted inappropriately and took advantage. That is an issue. Then they get into kind of slightly more inappropriate conversations about his penis and the size of it, and he starts sending her photos of him in his underwear and stuff. She says, he sent me a picture of him in his underwear to show off his bulge of his penis, which I did not ask for at all. I want to clarify that the reason I was acting cool with it was because I had a effing crush on him, so whatever, right? And so didn't really know better. Remember, I was a minor. I was 16. He knew that I liked him. The worst part is I was not the only person he has done this to. I think a year after the situation happened with him sending me photos, I confronted him about it and he apologised and said he knew he hurt me and regrets it. However, it makes me question if he said that just so I didn't turn against him and help expose him. And then there's a bunch of other stuff, and she quite rightly says, there's no excuse for you being the way you were with underage girls such as myself at the time. I still believe you can get help. I know you're a good person, but you need therapy. Stop running away from it. Stop saying you don't need it. And never lie to your fans about taking it again. Then another fan named Ash kind of corroborated this, and she said, my experience with Mini Lad, I was 17. When I was 16, I was a huge fan of Craig and his friends. I made a fan account for him on Twitter to make friends with other people and became good friends with an amazing group of girls. They have this like group chat and somehow Craig joins and it's whatever. A little later he followed me and sent a DM to say he would not have been added to the group chat if it hadn't been for me. I was confused as I had no part in him joining the group chat, but was excited anyways. He told me if I ever needed anything I could reach out, and then he began to discuss his recent breakup and how poorly it was affecting his mental health, so I told him he could do the same. I was over the moon to feel so close to the person I was infatuated with. We were casually friendly for a while with many tweets back and forth and the occasional DM. He added me on Snapchat where we chatted when we chatted here and there, nothing super deep. So you can already see there's kind of a pattern here. He comes up to these young fans who he knows are infatuated with him, and he shows his vulnerable side, being like, oh, I've been through a breakup, it's so hard for me, oh, will you be there for me? And it is all manipulation, and it's a pattern, because you can see he's doing this over and over again with lots of different girls. And I say girls because these are children, not women. Things took a sharp turn when we were chatting on Snapchat one day and the subject of virginity came up. He asked if I was a virgin and I said yes. He asked if he could take my virginity and I told him yes. Things escalated from there, and it's hard to recall specifics from so long ago, especially from Snapchat where chat history gets deleted. I remember my family had a trip planned to California to visit family for my birthday, and he asked if I would be able to come over to his house to have sex. I told him it would probably be a long shot because I was still 17 and my parents probably wouldn't let me out alone. My stepdad ended up having minor health complications that made us have to cancel our trip, a blessing in disguise. Although I never went to physically meet him, things continued to be sexual. We called a few times on Discord and he asked me for nudes quite often. I initially told him I wasn't comfortable sending things like that, but I was afraid after a while he would lose interest, so I complied. This is what we were speaking about in the last video I made on Girl Defined, actually, about how if you ever feel coerced into sending anything like that, if it's ever been used as a bargaining chip, don't do it. I can't say exactly how many pictures and videos were exchanged, but it was quite a few. He initiated nearly every conversation because I was too intimidated to message him first in fear of bothering him. All of this went on for around 6 months when we started messaging less and less. My infatuation died and I was no longer looking through rose-tinted glasses. I gained a lot of perspective and felt used. Good on this girl. Proud of her. Someone I looked up to and admired took advantage of that to get what he wanted. I ended up telling my friends who had no idea any of this was going on. They were outraged and wanted me to come forward right away. The only reason I didn't was to protect his girlfriend at the time. Oof. And then blah blah blah. She kind of ends it there. Proud of the other people who've come forward, whatever. So it turns out there's actually a lot of women who have spoken about this stuff before who've come forward to say that he did this to them while they were still children, while they were still minors, underage, yeah. So then, June 25th, Craig addressed the allegations on Twitter, just going back to the article here, admitting that they were true and his actions were unacceptable, taking full responsibility for his inappropriate behaviour. Apologising for his decisions to send the messages and pictures, Mini Lad said, "I am truly and deeply sorry for what I did. I absolutely should have done what was necessary at the time, and that was seeking professional help, realising that my actions were completely unacceptable and working to change my behaviours from the inside out." He added that he will be fully committed to working on himself moving forward, including going to therapy and rethinking some of his life choices. Brilliant, wonderful, definitely what you should be doing. Apologise, go to therapy, great. The only other thing is maybe you should definitely remove yourself from situations where you can interact with the children that you abused. So we'll talk about that a bit more in a moment in more detail, right? Again, put a pin in it, as Lee would say. So then this other girl comes out and says that he basically had loads of inappropriate conversations with her when she was 13 years old. So this isn't, you know, oh, well, they're 16, 17, that's legal in some countries, you know, it's a grey area. No, this is a 13-year-old child. There's no grey area. This is a child. So at this point, you know, we know it's serious. Let me just read you this article here. So this came out on the 8th of September. In June 2020, the Irish YouTube star was forced to publicly apologise after a number of young fans stepped forward to detail the unacceptable messages he had sent them, taking full responsibility for his inappropriate behaviour. So that's the written apology on Twitter that we just looked at. After several weeks of minimal interaction online with only 1 or 2 tweets and updates here and there, Thompson has released a video clearing the air on the issue and addressing new allegations that have been made against him. Let's talk about these new allegations. On August 29th, a Twitter user going by the name of Miles published a thread of tweets detailing her experiences as a 13-year-old girl at Camp 17, a gamer camp set up by Thompson and other creators. In the thread, she says he would, amongst other things, take advantage of the girls at the camp, call them cute or pretty, and sitting uncomfortably close to them. So like I said before, this isn't just, kind of borderline iffy anymore. This is a child. And not just that, this is an event that he set up because of his position of power and influence, because of his position as a YouTuber. He got to set up this event, he invited children to come to it, and then he used that career opportunity to take advantage of them, to abuse them, to manipulate them, to hurt them. That's what's not okay. And once again, I'm going to say put a pin in this because we're going to be coming back to this point. So, she details a few little points, like saying, Craig would call me cute and pretty. A 22-year-old calling a 13-year-old cute and pretty is so gross. Along with that, he would repeatedly talk about how all of the girls would be staring at his bum and how we would point out how big it is. That was not the case, and it made us very uncomfortable because we were minors. And she goes on. Several days later, Mini Lad has now posted a response addressing the accusation after the thread picked up steam, denying the allegations. So at this point, he realizes that, you know, this isn't just, oh, you know, I kind of like hit on some teenagers. Like, no, he's realizing that this is a child and I better deny it. He claims that at no point were any of us unmonitored, and the accusations that he called them cute or pretty are completely fabricated and untrue. He goes on to say, I wanted to address the new stuff coming out and stick up for myself by telling the truth. He also takes the opportunity to make a promise to his fans. I will be better, he says. I will continue to use my platform for good. I want this channel to be somewhere that people can come in and feel welcomed and leave with a smile on their face. That's all I want. The other thing to note is that in his apology video, he mentioned things like, you know, I want to be on record saying that I've been going to therapy every single week and will continue to go to therapy every single week. But the way he's acting, and this is what I have the problem with, seems to be he thinks he can say, well, I'm going to therapy. And, well, I've apologised now. And, like, he can just come back and carry on with his work and continue being a YouTuber who appeals to children. Because that's what he does in his like, videos and stuff. His main audience are young children and teenagers. I don't understand. And this is kind of what I want to talk about, right? Because he's admitted he's done some things wrong and he's not admitted others. Okay, whatever. The point is, we know he has harassed and hurt and made teenagers uncomfortable, and that's not okay. He's admitted that. That's what we're going to be talking about and looking at in this. There's no like, well, what if you didn't do this? Well, like, no, he's admitted to this. That's what we're going to be talking about. The point is, what happened was, he gained a platform which appealed to teenagers. He used that position of power to take advantage of teenagers. And now he thinks he can just apologise and keep that platform with access to teenagers. And I don't think that's okay. If a teacher abused a student, they would lose their job. They would not be allowed back in that classroom to be around other people that they could potentially hurt because they have a history of hurting those kinds of people. If a doctor or nurse abused a patient, they would lose their medical license and not be allowed back in a hospital or whatever where they might risk hurting more patients. Punishment shouldn't just be about teaching them a lesson. They should be about protecting more potential victims. This guy has hurt and abused teenagers who found him because of his platform on YouTube. Why is he allowed to still have a platform on YouTube that appeals to teenagers? I'm not in support of the idea that, you know, if you do something wrong, you deserve to lose your job. I don't support that at all. But, like I say, if your job is what you used to target vulnerable people, and your job will continue to put you around those vulnerable people that you hurt, you shouldn't be in that job. You shouldn't be allowed to be in that job. Am I making myself clear? I really hope I'm explaining this right. It comes back to this idea of sanctions, right? And when I talk about sanctions, I mean in kind of like the sociological way, you know, a penalty for disobeying a law or a rule, if you want to take the dictionary definition and the kind of sociological definition that they use. When we talk about sanctions, what is the point of them? Should a sanction be in place to rehabilitate and re-educate a person, in which case he should be forced to go to therapy, which he is doing? Great, wonderful. Should it be about instilling fear in him, where he's like, oh, well, I don't want to do anything bad in case this bad thing happens to me. But then he's not really learning a lesson. He's kind of doing it more to protect himself than to protect his victims. Or should a sanction be a punishment not to scare him, but to protect the victims? Does this make sense? So to me, the second one, the kind of coercion and fear one, to me that seems to be what most sanctions and punishments are. They seem to be about instilling kind of fear in someone so they don't misbehave again. But while that might work in some cases, I don't necessarily think it's the most effective or the best way to go about things, because it doesn't really teach them anything and it doesn't really have the victims in mind. It's all about making the perpetrator feel... It's about making the perpetrator worry for themselves more than the victims, if that makes sense. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you threaten someone with a punishment, but don't take away their access to victims and access to commit the crimes, then is it really going to work? Is it really the best thing to do? Is that really a sanction with the victims in mind rather than the perpetrator? Does that make sense? So let's take the like rapist teacher example, right? Because funnily enough, this was an issue that came up at my school. Our head of history was arrested for having a thing with like a 14-year-old girl in my year. So, you know, child, underage, he's a 30-odd-year-old man who took advantage of her and abused her. The response to that was that he was arrested, he went to prison, and he was never allowed to teach again. I would also hope he got some therapy in there as well. Now, yes, the prison time was a punishment for him. That was like a, you've done bad, you deserve to suffer, kind of putting the fear and coercion stuff into them. Don't do this again or you'll suffer through this again. Hopefully the therapy that he received, if he received any, would have been the re-education and the rehabilitation, the helping him understand this was wrong, this is why it was wrong, learn from it. But in my mind, the most important thing was that the minute like upper management and stuff found out about it, they removed him from the school, they removed him from the classroom, and they did not let him teach again, ever. Because that's what's important for the victims and protecting them, or potential victims. You can hope that education and rehabilitation will work. You can hope that fear and coercion and punishment will work. But if he still has access to the victims, you're still taking a chance. And if you really care about those people, those potentially vulnerable people, don't allow the abuser to be around them. And that's why I can't understand why someone like Craig here thinks it's completely okay for him to just come back to YouTube and talk to his young, impressionable teenage fan base again, when he has been taking advantage of that position of power and abusing it and abusing them. And that's kind of the question that I want to open up to you guys. This isn't just cancel culture, because this isn't just like, oh, someone made an off-colour joke, should they be punished for it? Should they lose subscribers for it? This isn't that. This is someone who has clearly taken advantage of their platform and used it to target vulnerable children. Why should they still be allowed that platform? This is one of the few cases where I do think deplatforming is incredibly important. You wouldn't allow a paedophile teacher into a school. Why would you allow a child abusing person to have contact with their child audience on YouTube? I was hoping this would be a little calmer and a little more of a rational discussion, but when children and teenagers are involved, I get very, very protective. I go like full on big sister mode, and I'm like, no one hurts the children. It's so weird, like from a woman who never wants kids to be so protective of kids. But there we go. Yeah, sorry this got a little ranty. This is something that really kind of like hits me hard, and that I genuinely have a lot of worries and concerns and feelings about. So I would love to hear your thoughts. So in this case, with this mini lad guy, this Craig, what do you think should be done? Do you think he should be deplatformed or not? And if so, why or why not? Do you think he should face any other kinds of punishment? Do you think therapy is enough? Do you think his apology is enough? I don't know. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts, and please let me know down in the comments below. Please go check out all the sources and news articles and videos and stuff that I've linked down in the description below. And that is where I'm going to be ending things today. Thank you so much to everyone who has been buying prints over on my little photography store. It means so much to me. I know I said it in my last video, but the prints that I've chosen to like sell are ones that have the best, most wonderful, special memories to me. They're the result of literally hundreds of thousands of photos and hours upon hours worth of work and passion and love. And the fact that you guys kind of see that in my work and are supporting me with it, it just means a hell of a lot to me. So I cannot thank you enough. If you want to check that out, it's racheloates.me/shop, and there are prints on there starting from just like £10 each, and they're all signed and dated and numbered by me. They'll all come with a little handwritten message in there as well. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's been supporting me and my work and my channel so far. I appreciate you guys a hell of a lot, and yeah, I'll see you again very soon. Thanks for watching today.